Welcome to our session about nonprofit board fundamentals. I'm excited to be here and thank you for joining us. In this session, we will discuss the opportunity, responsibilities, and structure of the nonprofit board, compare nonprofit and corporate boards, and talk about the importance of purpose-led leadership. At Stanford Women on Boards, we feel that with being a Stanford alumna comes the responsibility and the joy to give back. We want to make an impact. And we also want to help others through networking and mentoring. We feel that board service, whether on a for-profit or a nonprofit board, is an important lever of influence. So we understand the importance of preparation and practice and of continuous learning in our quest towards excellent board stewardship. I'm Elizabeth Coleman Sarkis, and I'm a graduate of Stanford's class of 1991. I worked in management consulting for a decade. And now I currently serve on the boards of two nonprofits, International Social Service, a 100-year-old international NGO in the area of child protection, and Giving Women, a Swiss philanthropy organization providing pro bono consulting to small nonprofits and teaching women how to be better philanthropists. My cumulative service on boards over the years adds up to 26 board years. I am joined today by Jerry King, an experienced nonprofit board member and SWB's leader of our nonprofit practice. Jerry, thank you for being with us. Could you give us an overview of your board service?
Elizabeth, this has always been a pleasure to work with you in our nonprofit experience group. In my case, throughout my career, I have been exclusively focused on nonprofit board service. Now, I combine that with over 35 years of executive experience in the tech industry and only recently retired to focus exclusively on nonprofits. Currently, I'm on the board chair for a large human resources organization, along with being a board member on two additional boards. My cumulative work adds up to 10 nonprofit boards and a total of nearly 50 board years.
Jerry, based on your experience with nonprofit board service, what type of opportunities are available to our members?
Well, fortunately, there are so many opportunities for board service in the nonprofit sector. In the US alone, there are 1.8 million nonprofits, both large and small, in areas such as human services, education, the arts, healthcare, environment, social justice. The list is almost endless.
With so many options, where should someone begin to find the right opportunity?
Well, I think your search should always begin with a cause that you care about. For example, I have twin sons who have challenges with learning issues and mental health issues. And so I'm drawn to those organizations that help kids like mine. I also believe a lot in the leadership in the leadership development of women, and selected organizations like Stanford Women on Boards or Women Unlimited fit that role perfectly. Elizabeth, what made you choose a nonprofit role?
Yeah, when I got into my first nonprofit role, I wanted to both give back after many people had invested in me over the years and to develop new professional skills, having spent a full-time period with my children. Later, while writing my first board bio, I realized there was a common thread in my background, professional ambitions, and personal life around the areas of education and of child protection. And this realization provided a focused direction for my nonprofit board search. Now let's shift gears and talk about the primary responsibilities of nonprofit boards.
Okay, great. There's 5 key areas that I'm going to highlight today. First, the top responsibility or North Star for a nonprofit board is really the mission of the organization. As a board, we must ensure adherence to that mission with adequate resources in place for the organization to deliver on that promise. Second, we want to make sure that we have the right CEO to guide the operations. The CEO reports to the board, and the board should ensure fair compensation, regular performance reviews, succession planning, and a strong CEO board chair relationship. Third, the board provides oversight to the nonprofit's strategic plan and ensures that the services and programs delivered are really aligned to that strategy. Fourth, the board must ensure adequate financial resources for the operations, along with appropriate oversight of all its assets. In addition, don't forget that fundraising is a key responsibility of nonprofit boards. Each board member will be expected to contribute. Most nonprofits have what I call a give or get policy. It requires you to give a minimum amount of money each year or to get other donors or members of your personal network to satisfy the fundraising goal. And finally, I believe that every nonprofit really needs to maintain laser focus on the individuals they serve and build a board to ensure that the community has a voice in the boardroom. Nonprofits typically serve a very large number of stakeholders, so you need to be ready to build strong relationships in your community.
What type of board structure should we expect?
So generally speaking, for many nonprofits, the board in size can be 10, 20, maybe 25. Sometimes it can even exceed that. The board usually meets 4 to 6 times a year, and officer roles can include the board chair, chair-elect, vice chairs, secretary, and treasurer. In addition, and importantly, there are a number of committees where members work together on policy and oversight. The standing committees, usually covered in the bylaws, are often the executive committee, finance, audit, governance and nominations, and compensation. Now, depending on the nonprofit, you will likely see additional ad hoc committees, including fundraising, strategy, technology, programming, all sorts of committees where board members have the needed skills and experience that will really add value to the organization and what they need.
Indeed, committee work is so important. As we'll hear in a video further along in this series, you might want to sit in on some committee meetings, both to learn more about the organization and also to observe your fellow board members and how they communicate and work. As a new board member, your work on a committee can allow you to shine in an area of expertise. This in turn can lead you to board leadership opportunities. That was my case on the ISS board. My committee work gave me more exposure and led me to being appointed chancelière or board secretary. Also, even if you're not on a board yet, you can often get onto your first board seat by working as an external member of a board committee. Let me end with a word of caution. Be prepared to invest time into your committee work and think about that investment before you sign up. On nonprofits, committees are indeed where a lot of the work gets done, so you'll want to make sure you can truly live up to your commitment. Jerry, with all your experience as a nonprofit board member, what have you observed that surprised you or was harder than you expected?
Well, I have to say, in my very first board, what surprised me the most was the large number of stakeholders, clients, families, local agencies, government agencies, schools. I mean, it was donors. It was a lot more than I was used to. Plus, I also had to remind myself that the board role is not an operational one, what I was used to in my corporate job, but one of governance and oversight. Now, what I would say to our audience is what shouldn't surprise you is that there will be surprises. And I've seen quite a few. I've seen a CEO retirement, CEO firing, a loss of a major funding source, a reputational issue with a board member, questionable donor. The advice I would give is just be vigilant. Surprises will happen, but listen carefully, seek data, fully understand the strategy of the organization, and then be both responsive and thoughtful when challenged. A good understanding of governance paired together with a board team that you can work with will carry you through a lot. Now, Elizabeth, it might be good to review how nonprofit boards compare to their corporate counterparts.
Yeah, sure. In fact, they have more in common than you might think, but there are a few areas where they differ. Whereas corporate boards are accountable to the shareholders and generating profits, the nonprofit boards find themselves accountable to many stakeholders in the community, as you were mentioning before, clients, donors, government agencies, and they are accountable to generate impact based on mission. Publicly held companies must report to the SEC in the US, whereas a nonprofit reports to the IRS, the organization that granted them their nonprofit status. And you have the similar organizations in other countries, of course. In terms of size, corporate boards are often smaller than nonprofit boards. The typical for-profit board has 9 to 11 members, whereas there can be 20 to 25 or even as many as 50 members at a nonprofit, which takes some very skillful orchestration by the nonprofit leader. For-profit boards also have fewer committees than the average nonprofit that relies on board member skills and expertise not available in their organizations. Finally, a public board member is compensated for their work, whereas a nonprofit board member is a volunteer. In fact, the nonprofit board member gives money to the organization as part of their fundraising responsibility. So what you were talking about before, the give or get. Despite the differences we just covered, we do now see an increasing convergence between the practices of boards in both nonprofit and corporate settings. It's a great opportunity to benefit from each other's insights. Data strategy is one area where for-profits are often further advanced than nonprofits, for whom data is so crucial in measuring impact. And vice versa, shared purpose and commitment to mission, often the hallmark of a nonprofit board, is becoming increasingly important in the for-profit world too. This brings me to what is called purpose-driven board leadership. Jerry, can you tell us more about this concept and how critical it has become?
You know, I'm glad we brought this up because a couple years ago in 2022, the CEO of BoardSource wrote this key article entitled Purpose-Driven Board Leadership. And it was a real wake-up call to ensure that boards are really focused on the mission and its impact in the community. As you consider a role in a nonprofit board, ask yourself, are you ready to, one, put purpose before organization? Who do you serve, and are you executing on your mission? Two, do you know your ecosystem? Understand the interaction of your nonprofit within your community and how to collaborate with other agencies. Three, do you provide equity access and measure outcomes? Do all the members of your community feel comfortable with your organization? Does your workforce represent the demographics of the community? And do you offer culturally responsive services for them? And of course, importantly, do you have a community voice? Have you found a way to include the voice of your community on your board?
Jerry, from your experience with BoardMatch, what types of board members are nonprofits looking for today?
Well, we get all kinds of requests for our members, but I would say there's 4 criteria that most often come up. First of all, the nonprofit will care a great deal about your passion for the mission and any expertise that you can bring related to that mission. Next, they will determine if you have the skills that are important to enhance their board composition or to support committee work. We've talked about some of those committees, and they may need your skill set if you bring audit, finance, legal, HR, marketing, or other skills. In addition, they're usually trying to add more diversity to their board. This could be in gender or race or age, or do you bring a life experience similar to the community that they serve? And not to be overlooked, you will be expected to contribute financially, so make sure that those expectations are clear.
Yes, it's important to talk about that up front. And Jerry, for those who want to learn more, what are the main sources of nonprofit board information?
You know, there's a great deal of wonderful information online, but my go-to place is BoardSource. That's where I go for most of my nonprofit board governance information. We've also suggested 3 key books on our website that are really worth reading if you want to develop your sense of governance and nonprofit strategy. And I also think the Stanford Women on Boards Educational Resource Guide has a very comprehensive list of all the resources that will be really useful to you.
And let's remember the personal resources that are available from our SWB members. Jerry, you and others at SWB generously took the time to review my board bio draft and my application to a board. Just ask and you will find help. And of course, all the resources that Jerry has mentioned are on our SWB website. We'd now like to recap and give you some closing messages about nonprofit board fundamentals. We have described the opportunities offered by nonprofit board service, the responsibilities and structure of the nonprofit board. We have compared between nonprofit and corporate boards, and we have talked about purpose-led leadership. We also shared our takes on what nonprofits are looking for in board members and how you might access a nonprofit board position. If you want to be on a board and have a passion for a particular cause, joining a nonprofit board is the perfect way to give back and learn. Nurture your personal network to increase your opportunities. There's a video further down in this series about activating your networks and presenting yourself. Be prepared with a board bio and a strong LinkedIn profile so you're ready when the call comes. We also have a video about that, about your board bio. And there's an SWB board bio template available. And if there's a nonprofit that interests you, you can volunteer your time on a committee or a project before accepting a board role. Finally, once you get onto your board, you'll want to contribute, engage with others, build trusted relationships, and hone your soft skills in order to stay focused on mission and impact. You'll hear about these skills in several of the videos towards the end of our series.
Great pointers. And, let's keep in mind that you can begin nonprofit work early in your career. Use this experience to learn about board governance and to build your personal network for possible corporate boards down the road. Or you can exclusively devote your board service to nonprofit, as I have. Either way, you'll really enhance your impact if you apply these leading edge stewardship practices to the boardroom and learn how to work successfully as a board team. If you really care about the mission and the community served, it will bring you tremendous joy to serve on a nonprofit board.
This concludes our brief introduction into nonprofit board fundamentals. We encourage you to watch additional modules in our SWB series that will help you prepare for board service and position you for that role. As you pursue your board journey, keep in mind the following question: how can I play my role on the team of a high-performing nonprofit board, grounded in purpose, and capable of driving long-term impact and sustainable growth? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.